Thanks for tuning in to our Seller Interview series. Up today, we've got an Amazon FBA business for sale in the occasions and gifts niche. Created in June 2017, this business makes an average of $13,026 per month in net profit, and the listing number for this business is 47105. Now, we do these interviews to give potential buyers more information about both the seller and the asset they're looking to purchase. We hope these insights are helpful for you in making a buying decision. We've got the seller with us today to go through the business and cover everything from niche selection to traffic and monetization. Thanks for coming on, Graham.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to talking to you.
Yeah, awesome to have you here. Before we get started, I'm going to go over a quick summary of the business. This business was built in June 2017. This business has average monthly revenue of $39,697 and is producing an average net profit of $13,026, and that is based on a 6-month average. Included in the sale of the business are 29 SKUs, pending trademark in Canada, and a Facebook account. All right, now that we've gone through some of these details, really excited to jump in and learn a little bit more about your business, Graham. So start me off, can you tell me a little bit about your background in building and running online businesses?
Yeah, of course. This is actually pretty much my first venture into online business. So I started looking into it when I was, 21, and then would have launched about the time I turned 22. So pretty young and had no previous experience with online business. Just built it up slowly over time, adding products and learning a lot as I went along. So yeah, definitely got into it at a good time. I felt like back then it was maybe a bit easier to break into new niches and stuff like that. So basically just ran with the products as they kept rolling and kept releasing more products, learned as I went, and built it up to the point where it's at now.
I always think it's interesting to find out, what drew people to a particular business model. So what kind of drew you to FBA, and what was the kind of promise that you saw there?
For me, I was always hearing about things, online money making. You would come across stuff like affiliate marketing and whatnot. I guess I just couldn't wrap my head around that quite as easily, or it didn't seem quite as legit. So basically, I was just doing a ton of research on ways you can make money online. And when people talked about creating a product, customizing it, I guess it was just easier for me to understand. So basically, I started looking into getting stuff manufactured, how you can customize it, and the fact that you're selling a physical product rather than a digital one, or one where you're basing off referrals, just made more sense to me. So, but yeah, basically just in the end, a physical product made a lot more sense to me than a digital product or a referral-based thing. For it being my first online business, the fact that I was selling a product that I could touch and knew was existing, if that makes sense. It wasn't like a digital product. So that just made it a lot simpler for me. And I came across a lot of other YouTubers and people on forums that were doing Amazon businesses, and they seemed to have a lot of credibility. So I trusted the business path that they were saying, basically. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer, and super interesting to hear how you got from point A to point B. So one thing I do want to ask is, why did you choose this niche in particular?
For me, I did go a little bit here and there when it came to my first products. Basically, my focus when I started was just to launch anything that would sell. Of course, I had no prior online selling experience, so anything that I could put up and list that would make me money, I was going to be happy with. So when I started, I wasn't targeting on a specific niche. But from there, I just kept looking for good opportunities. And if the numbers looked real nice and I saw that there was profit to be made, I wasn't too choosy. But in the future, once I started to launch some good products and got some good traction in some niches that I thought had good growth, then I started to really hone in on those. So there was, a few niches that I'm in that I really decided to double down on. I thought they had a lot of growth potential. And yeah, I guess I was right. So that's the way it turned out. I'm positioned well in a few key niches, and they've continued to grow up until this point.
This might seem like an obvious question. I want to talk about how this business is primarily making money. I think you've got a special case here because you are selling on Amazon, in Canada and in the US. So talk to me a little bit about that setup and how you're able to sell in these two markets, and just kind of paint a picture of this business for, listeners and potential buyers.
Yeah, for sure. So for the Canadian market, when I first started selling, I felt like it would be easier to start selling in Canada. And I always compared 2017, for example, selling on .com was, if you sold in Canada instead, it was so much less competitive that it felt like I was selling in 2014 or 2015 in .com. Of course, there's less sales, but there was also 10 times less competitors. So when I first broke into the markets, I was finding all these nice opportunities selling in Canada that were already kind of saturated in America. So that is where I focused at the start, and I did launch my first few products in Canada. But after that, I started to realize that I could launch certain niches in both Amazon.com and then also take those over to Canada and dominate the Canadian markets because they're reasonably easy to compete in. So that would be an extra nice little profit boost. But that's how I ended up branching out into America. Because of that, all of my products that sell in America sell in Canada, but a couple of them are just in the Canadian marketplace because it would be reasonably tough to try to launch some of those in America just based on the competition on the .com site.
Okay, great answer. So why are you selling the business instead of keeping it and growing it?
For me, I'm at a point where I'm not forced to sell it or desperate to sell it or anything like that. This is kind of my baby, so I have always have a soft spot for it, and it's still doing well, and I'm very happy with it. But I just feel like, I've never had any other type of wealth in the rest of my life, starting this young. So I kind of view it as a de-risking factor just on the fact that, crazy things could happen. You never know what could go wrong. I mean, as with any business, Google could shut down your SEO business or whatever. I'm not too familiar with those businesses, but there's always a slight form of risk when you're running an online business. And I just feel like at least if I were to get something out of it now, I could start a new Amazon business or another online business in the future using some of that cash. But yeah, I'm not saying there's any inherent risks. I just tend to be a fairly conservative person. And so I feel like while I can get a nice valuation on it, there's still a decent opportunity for someone else to grow it. And I know I can grow it even this year, but it is somewhat of a de-risking factor for myself. And I know that, I could cash out, get a large sum of cash, and then just put, maybe a quarter of that back into something new, just so, kind of protecting myself a bit, because it would be a shame to have something go wrong if it were to go wrong. And then, I'm out for the last 3 years of hard work. So yeah, I definitely don't want anyone to confuse that with the fact that I'm saying it's risky, because it's, there's no more risk than any other online business. It's just, that's the way I kind of view it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it sounds like you're off to writing some new chapters, which, it turns out to be the case for plenty of people that we talk to selling on the marketplace. So,
yeah,
you have been in this business, you said, for what, about 3 years?
Yeah, so I basically started researching about 3 years ago.
Okay. Well, cool. So I think you're going to have some pretty interesting perspective on this. Is there anything you learned from this business that you would apply to future sites or businesses? What did you learn from building this that just seemed to really work?
For me, I've always been a very analytical person. So every product that I launched, I had a fairly confident view of whether it would be successful or not. So I think one of the big things would just be to trust the numbers more than something that you want to do. For me, it's simply a numbers game, and I've set up a lot of my products in good niches simply because the numbers were right. And then I guess another thing would be just being proactive rather than reactive. If you're on top of things, just doing stuff before something goes wrong rather than reacting once something does go wrong, whether that be like thinking of potential problems that a customer might have, or reaching out to them beforehand and explaining how to use your product better. Just things like that are really going to set you apart, because too many people get ruined by bad reviews or something going wrong just because they were not reacting first and giving customers something that they might want, or just getting ahead in terms of review strategies or ranking strategies, that type of thing.
Okay, pretty cool. Well, of course, on the flip side of that, was there anything you tried that didn't work while building this business?
Definitely. Not too many big failures that I can think of. I do know that, when I talk to other sellers, a lot of them have, they've launched 10 products and only 3 of them are successful. I'm kind of in a unique situation where I think I have, depending on variations, the way you want to count it, I'm 29 for 29 on successful products. But there's definitely been certain strategies that I've tried, such as maybe giveaways that weren't as profitable or successful in terms of ranking as I would have hoped. But there definitely hasn't been too many major mistakes. Maybe the odd supplier mistake back in 2018 where something wasn't communicated properly and they didn't do something as I would have liked it. But nothing really stands out too crazy other than maybe, some opportunities that I didn't end up going for. There's probably some products that I could have launched 2 years ago that I didn't that would be doing well today. But no, nothing too crazy on the negative end.
Yeah, again, I think that's a really great answer. Moving on to a little bit of a different subject here, I want to talk about, traffic and what's happening with your marketing. So paint me a picture of what you're doing currently in terms of marketing.
For me, marketing is very little. Social media presence is basically non-existent. I don't do anything for outside traffic. Basically, I'm just learning the Amazon game, get products ranked well, get them optimized, and make them better than the competitors' products, and you're going to sell. So I don't even do that much in the way of PPC. Most of my results are organic Amazon traffic. I think that's probably a decent opportunity for someone that would be good with, say, influencer marketing or off-site, off-Amazon advertising, stuff like that. But for me, I would say a good hefty 95 or more percent of all my sales, probably 99, are just good organic traffic from Amazon.
Awesome. Well, let's get a little bit into inventory. So describe the process of getting your inventory to Amazon.
Yeah, fairly simple. Most of the time, all my suppliers are in China. I have a good relationship with all my suppliers. I haven't been hit too toughly by the tariffs and whatnot. Plus, Canada is unaffected by those tariffs, but essentially just, placing orders, depending on the lead time, it's anywhere from a week to a month in terms of production. And then assuming I've done my inventory management properly, we'll try to get it on sea shipping just for the lower fees. Obviously, air shipping can be done if necessary, but that's usually in a pinch or when I haven't, we've experienced a large uptick in sales when we are not expecting it, or if I, made a mistake on when to order something. So typically try to ship over by sea. And then if it's going to Canada, it will ship directly to Canada. If it's going to America, it will ship directly there. And then from there, make its way to the fulfillment centers. But there's nothing in terms of warehouses, or we're not dealing with a ton of inventory. So yeah, logistics is a fairly simple process.
Great. If you were to keep the business, what are some ways you would try to grow it?
The way I see it now, there's still a lot of products to add, and that's what I've been successful doing. So I would continue to add products. I think these days I've relaxed a little bit on that. The business obviously runs pretty smoothly as is. I have added products here and there, and they continue to make more profit, but there is a lot of growth possible in the niches that I'm in. So it's pretty simple, just, adding more products. If someone was willing to, they could also expand marketplaces. That's a fairly easy one. And then there is some opportunity for building out their own site if someone were to want to do that. It's not something I've really focused on just because, like I said, I know how to sell on Amazon. So that's what I've put all my focus into. But I would say, yeah, expanding marketplaces if needed. Adding new products is always a good one. And, there are still a lot of products in the niches that I'm in. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Earlier you were mentioning a little bit about risks. I want to talk about that from a little bit of a different perspective here. What do you think are the biggest risks with the business that a buyer should be aware of?
Obviously, as always, when dealing with Amazon, sometimes they're tough to deal with, whether it be, a shipment issue or, they are cracking down on more things over time. So you definitely wouldn't want to be doing anything black hat or against their rules. Just, play it safe. You never know. I have heard of friends that have done nothing wrong and had a slap on the wrist or gotten a short suspension for something like that. So, of course, if Amazon does get on your bad side, there can be risks there. You might be out of business for a week or something until you can appeal any suspensions, things like that. I'd say Amazon is probably the biggest risk just because they do tend to hold the power. And that's why I would encourage a future buyer to probably look into at least branching off of Amazon if necessary. I guess other risks are just typical Amazon risks, customers having issues with products, but I don't see anything too crazy. I guess if there were to be escalating trade wars, there could be a slight problem with that, but that would be a problem for pretty much every Amazon seller. I am manufacturing in China, so that is something to keep an eye on, but it is nice that a lot of our products are doing well in Canada as well. So that obviously would not be affected by any US-China problems.
Can you tell me a little bit about the amount and type of work you do on the business for maintenance?
For me, I'd say I'm fairly passionate about it still. So I do a lot of checking just because I'm curious on how things are going. If someone wanted to put less time into it than me, they could, and I still don't even put that much time into it myself. But I'd say main things would be obviously reordering, adding new products, editing variations, things like that, that is just normal for any Amazon seller. But if someone wasn't that dedicated to growing the business, all they would really need to do is place reorders. I don't have to answer too many customer inquiries, maybe one a day or at most. Dealing with negative feedback, that type of thing sometimes takes a bit of time. And then occasionally replying to customers through our chatbots that I keep saying we, that's my company speak coming out of me, but I've just set up. So yeah, not very much in terms of that. If you really broke it down, it would probably be like 20 minutes of checks per day, and then maybe once or twice a week you might have to spend an hour or two just talking with suppliers, getting the next order set up. Or if you are adding a new product, obviously there's going to be a time investment like that, but it's nothing too complicated because a lot of my current suppliers are able to work with me on new products without having to search for new suppliers or anything like that.
Awesome. So what skills or requirements are there for someone not familiar with this niche or business model?
If you're not familiar with the business model, I would say you probably want to just learn the ins and outs of the Amazon platform. It's nothing too difficult, but it is worth learning. Just things such as creating shipping labels, realizing the process of getting products into inventory, things like that. But once you have a grasp of the basics, there isn't too much that's complicated. I have started to implement a little bit of chatbots where there'll be a little bit of sequences where customers can retrieve like an ebook or something like that. So you might have to do a little bit of learning on that, but it's all something that can be learned within, a few hours, honestly. I use ManyChat and they have good tutorials. So it's, a very simple process to respond to customers on things like that. And then if a buyer wants to look into adding more products, then you'd probably want to do a little bit of learning on both ranking the product, so getting it ranked well for, the right keywords, as well as listing optimization. That's always it's an important skill for a buyer to have. And I think I've even selected that I would be happy to help the next buyer with any things like that, as, it's a fairly simple process, but it's something I've nailed down pretty well. So yeah, I'd be happy to share my knowledge with whoever buys it.
Oh, awesome. That actually leads me right to my next question, which is how much support are you offering buyers? So tell me a little bit more about the details there and what you're willing to help out with.
Yeah, like I said, I'm willing to help out a lot. I don't have like a specific time frame, but for a couple 2-3 months, I'd be happy to go back and forth on things that a new buyer might not know. Of course, I don't want to be answering questions a year from now, but I'd definitely be open to several Skype sessions or video calls. I'm happy to help out. Like, if someone's willing to invest a decent chunk of money, I'm happy to really show them the ins and outs and really make sure that they run with a successful business, because I think it has a lot of room to run and it's got a lot of growth potential still. So yeah, definitely would be open to, 40 hours of work with them or whatever. Like I'm pretty flexible as long as it's not anything past a few months.
Okay. Last few questions here. Would you commit to a non-compete?
Yeah, of course, not a problem for me. I have lots of other niches and I don't even know how quickly I'd be looking to get back into Amazon. So if I did want to start a new one, there's many other niches out there for me to get into.
Right. Are you open to an earnout?
I actually am. I'm reasonably sticky on the valuation because I think, even though I'm biased, that this is probably one of the better FBA businesses for its value out there, just like with the growth of the products. But why not compromise so much on the price? I'd definitely be open to an earnout. Obviously, it totally depends on the terms and conditions and whatnot, but I'd be willing to at least look into it for sure.
Great. And final question, but my favorite one, putting yourself in the shoes of a buyer, why do you think this is a business worth buying?
I think my products, like I've said a couple times now, do have room to grow still. There's a lot of more products that can be added around the niches that I'm already in. So a whole lot of creativity doesn't have to be had when it comes to adding new products. It's a pretty clear line of what types of products can be added. I think I've positioned the products in good spaces where you're not getting, you'll see some of these bigger sellers that have massive products, they're getting targeted. I have a friend that, he's one of the top sellers in a big niche and he's getting constantly targeted by Chinese throwing him bad reviews or people attacking his listings. So I'm kind of in a nice sweet spot where my products are making a decent profit, but it's not too stressful. It's pretty easy to rise to the top with any new products because the competition just isn't that competent, but yet, there's still a nice profit margin. So yeah, I mean, obviously I'm biased, but I do look at my own business, even when I compare it to other sellers I know, and think that I've set it up pretty well for the next few years for sure.
I think that's a great answer. And, unless you have anything else to add, I think you've given us a pretty thorough picture of the business as a whole. Do you have anything else that is pressing or on your mind?
No, nothing I can think of. Whoever would be willing to buy it from me, I'd be happy to really make sure that you have continued success with it. And yeah, I don't have too much to say. No.
Great. Well, it's been a great interview. I really enjoyed having you on today and looking forward to seeing how things play out for you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to our channel. And if you want more information, the link will be below the video that'll take you to this marketplace listing. If you're watching this on the listing page and want more information, become a depositor today. When you make the deposit, one of our business analysts will be in contact with you and you'll be given everything you need to review this business. Have a great day.